Lillian's going to do a beautiful introduction. I'll let you know who Lillian is in a moment. And then Nathan is going to be joining us for an impactful, inspiring huddle around the water, like I just mentioned. And we're going to have some learning opportunities for you and the inspiration around when it comes to leading with and utilizing the water. That's changed all our lives, but we're also going to give you an opportunity to have a little bit of Q&A as well. So be ready to be brave, get excited and jump out off mute and ask your questions as well. Okay, so Lillian, my love, I would love to introduce Lillian is, let's bring you out onto screen, Raquel, please. I would love to introduce, oh, there's a bug on my shoulder. No, it's not a bug, it's my shit. Thanks. Thanks, Kylie. This is Lillian. I would love to introduce you. Lillian is an incredible woman. She is so well versed in so many things. She's a leading parenting strategist. She is an advocate for the water. She is beautiful inside and out, and she has 25 plus years in direct selling in the network marketing industry. She's an entrepreneur in her own right, and she is mum to Naturopath Nathan, and some of you will know him as Naturopath Nate, but I'll allow you to introduce yourself and how you like to be called, Nathan. I've used all terms of your name so far just to cover it all, but Lillian's going to share a beautiful story about how she first came to find Enagic and learn the power of the water, and how she got Nathan involved, even though it may have taken her a little bit of time. So we're very excited to hear from you, Lillian. I shall hand over to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this incredible call. We're very, very excited to have you both.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen, for the lovely introduction. It is quite a funny story. So Nathan is a naturopath of over 15 years. He's actually a naturopath, herbalist and nutritionist. He has extensive experience working with various holistic doctors and people who are really, really focused on helping people to have the best health and well-being. And for those of you, let me know on the call if you know Nathan, because if you know Nathan, or if you've heard Nathan speak, if you've heard one of his talks or his interviews, he is super, super detailed, super scientific. As my practitioner, he's the best practitioner ever, because he really goes into a lot of detail. And 4.5 years ago, beautiful Daniel Bissica contacted me about this business. Now, Dan and I were in another company together, and I went on to do something different, and then Danielle and Dan joined Enagic. And I was initially quite reluctant, not because of anything negative about this company, but I just thought, no, I just can't do another one. I've, for 25 plus years, I've been in the industry and been very successful and achieved very high levels. But I was kind of like, no, that's it. I'm just going to concentrate on my parenting. And no, thank you, Dan. But then Dan got me on a call with beautiful Ali May, and I'm like, oh, anyway, at the end of that call, I ended up getting started with a quad. So I joined with the intention of it being a business, but what did interest me was the water. I have heard about the water. As we all know, it's been around for many years. I had friends in Melbourne who had been strongly encouraging me to buy a unit for 10 plus years. And I just didn't really ever look at it. So at the end of that call with Ali May, I didn't do any scientific research or anything like Nathan normally would. I just said a big yes to joining the business and getting started with a quad. I know that Danielle used to call me the Quadzilla Queen, because I think I put on about 5 or 6 pods within the first few weeks or so. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So Nathan, being the very scientific person that he is, and when anybody who knows Nathan truly respects him, because he doesn't say anything unless he's thoroughly researched it. So when he kind of said to me, Mom, have you done your research? This could just be some gimmicky, overpriced, filter or something. I'm like, no, I trust Dan and Danielle. I trust the other people who I know who have been using the product. And he was not going to have a bar of it initially. So I said, being a naturopath and being in clinic and seeing a lot of people with health issues, I'm like, I was so excited. I thought he was going to be my first team member. And I'm like, Nathan, this will be so amazing for you to share in clinic. And he's like, no, I need to do my research. So I think I put on, I think I was 4A before I even introduced Nathan. I think Nathan was perhaps my 4A sale, actually. Dan and Danielle might remember. And so it took him several months. Nathan might clarify, I think 5 or 6 months of thorough research. So little did I know, not only was he testing and measuring by using the product himself, but he was doing a bunch of scientific research in the background. And he did come in with quite a humble apology, I guess, for a want of a better word, to say, Mum, you're right, this is an amazing product. I'm feeling the benefits of it. And with all the research that I've done, I can see it's an amazing product. So good job for the decision you made, Mum. But it took him months to tell me that. And then he was then happy to share with his patients and with colleagues and other people he knew. So Nathan, I'm going to get it started this evening with asking, and I'm sure people will be curious. So what was it that you learned through that, and that initial research period that kind of changed your mind about Kangan and about the water that we drink?
Thank you for the intro, and yeah, it is quite a funny story. The problem I had with it is it just sounded like an overpriced alkaline water filter, and I was totally wrong. It's got nothing to do with alkaline water. It's not even really a filter. And it's not until I learned the term electrolyzed reduced water, and then I started delving into what is that, and what does that mean, and what does it produce. And then I was like, oh my God, this thing is actually producing a redox molecule. And for those who are not sure what a redox molecule is, it reduces oxidation. So you know how when you cut an apple in half and it goes brown, that's oxidation, like damage to your cells. And something that reduces that oxidation is preventing that oxidation from occurring. So when I figured that out, things started to get really interesting. And I was like, okay, so if it produces that, how, why, what, how much, what can it be used for? And then it came like down all these rabbit holes, like from one direction to another. The biggest thing I had with like all these things people were saying it does and doesn't do, and sifting through Google research, which was just like people's opinions and competitors' opinions and who knows what. And so it took a long time to go through the scientific literature to find out that this machine, in my opinion, it produces therapeutic water. And so the special thing about what it does is, if anyone's heard of like vitamin C and CoQ10, glutathione, these are all antioxidants. And the really cool thing about what the Kangan does is that when you use it correctly, it produces molecular hydrogen. And I've been jumping on the Facebook groups and talking about molecular hydrogen for years because no one ever spoken about it. And when patients came up to me and told me about the Kangan years before Mum even spoke to me about it, when I Googled it, there was no information about it. And it's not until really about 2013 there was enough research papers out there that people were figuring out that this is what the machine does. It produces molecular hydrogen. So anytime prior to that, it just worked, but they didn't know why. And so now it's amazing that we've got this really strong scientific research behind it. In fact, there's like, I think they're about up to 1,600, 1,700 papers now on molecular hydrogen and electrolytes reduced water. And if you go into like, well, how many, what's that helping? There's like over 170 different animal and human diseases that this is helping for, virtually every organ of our body. And if you've ever done any sort of chemistry, what really matters is when you're taking something, especially trying to use it for health, size matters. And in this instance, smaller the better. So when we're absorbing minerals and vitamins and supplements and medication, they all have to go through these like protein transport channels. Whereas molecular hydrogen being so small, it literally just diffuses all the way through our membrane, and it doesn't need to wait in line. It just jumps the queue and just jumps straight into our cells, even across our blood-brain barrier, which very few supplements and even medications can do. And so that's what's so amazing about it. That's what really took my interest in knowing that this machine is producing something that is literally replacing a whole bunch of things that I would usually be prescribing to my patients. And so that's what's changed my mind, let alone the additional benefit of like the 2.5 which is the hypochlorous acid. Again, there wasn't anyone really talking about hypochlorous acid. They were just saying 2.5 and it's acidic water, and it does this and it does that. But of course, my annoying trait is I have to know the ins and outs about everything. So I had to figure out, okay, what is this 2.5? What's actually happening? How's it being made? Okay, it's hypochlorous. What's that? Oh, wow. Our own neutrophils make hypochlorous acid. We make that. That's how we kill bacteria and viruses. It's like 120 times more powerful than bleach. It's amazing. So the antioxidant CoQ10, molecular hydrogen is 400 times smaller than that. So that's how it gets through. And the hypochlorous acid is the most potent sanitizer there is. And the really cool thing about the 11.5 that comes out, it contains trace amounts of sodium hydroxide, but because it's highly alkalized electrolyzed reduced water, it acts as like a saponin and emulsifies fats. But even without that, when you're looking at the studies of electrolyzed water using this highly electrolyzed reduced water with that trace amounts of sodium hydroxide in it, up to like 86% of pesticides can be removed. So I've seen some like things out there about like demonstrations with tea and all that stuff. That's irrelevant because you look at the studies, they don't talk about any of that. They just look at the actual electrolyzed reduced water's ability to remove pesticides. So they're the three big takeaways for me. And that's really all I had to chat about with patients. So that's what turned me around.
So that was pretty amazing, Nathan, that you came to that conclusion. And it is interesting because we only learned about the water when we were introduced really 4.5 years ago. But even 4.5 years ago, molecular hydrogen wasn't really being talked about. And I know Nathan was sharing with me earlier that some of the things that even he was saying at the beginning, he's cringing a little bit about now because he's learnt since then that that's not really the absolute truth as such. So what was it that you initially learnt and perhaps was sharing with people that you've now changed your mind on?
Some of the information is really hard to find out. So again, because I love chemistry, I was like, okay, so when the water goes through the electrolysis process, and the pH is kind of irrelevant in that sense because the pH is a reference of the potential of hydrogen. Is it acidic because it has lots of hydrogen ions, or is it neutral, like a balance of hydrogen and hydroxide molecules, or is it basic, also known as alkaline, where it has the absence of hydrogen ions by themselves, and instead it has hydroxide molecules or carbonates or bicarbonates. And that's what makes the color change from like green to purple or green to yellow for acidic. And so the byproduct of making molecular hydrogen, this redox molecule, technically not an antioxidant, but it acts like one, is that the other things that it produces are these hydroxides. And I was trying to figure out, so this hydroxides being produced, what do they do? Are they able to kind of like donate their electrons and quench other stuff? Or do they just combine with, some of the minerals and make mineral hydroxides, kind of like ionic minerals, which can be quite absorbable? So those two areas is what I'd love to do a bit more research on. Are ionic minerals being created? Like, are the minerals becoming more bioavailable? And what are these hydroxides doing? Are they just, combining with the minerals and playing such a little small effect? So there are two things that 5 years ago I was learning about, but struggling to find, credible sources to learn more about them that I'd love to delve more into. But yeah, the pH, I'm not sure if you're going to ask later on, but the pH issue is one that comes up frequently that gets misinterpreted.
Awesome. And as a practitioner, and obviously you've recommended the product to patients, you've given them water trials. Some of your patients have bought machines, which has been fantastic. So I know we're not here to make therapeutic claims, and we have to be very careful with compliance about therapeutic claims. But what would be some of the health benefits without making a therapeutic claim that you may have read about or even witnessed and experienced with your patients and the people you've recommended it to?
So the easiest way to answer that question is not to say it from my words, but to quote a publication that talks about the benefits of it. That way, it's not me making the claim, and we're talking about electrolyzed reduced water in general. So the Loma Linda University reported that hydrogen has the potential to help with the top 8 of the 10 disease-causing fatalities as listed by the CDC. And so if it can help with the top 8 of the 10 diseases that we're facing, and some of those include things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, inflammatory bowel disease, tumorigenesis, increased angiogenesis, kidney function, diabetes, liver function, heart disease. They're the areas of research within that 170 human and animal disease models that they're referring it can be used for. And so that's out there. That's, in the medical literature. It then does depend on the level of molecular hydrogen the machine can actually produce, which we'll get into later about how to optimize that so you're getting the full usage of your machine. But personally, I was looking at, okay, so from a naturopathic perspective, the microbiome and the gut inflammation, they're really the center of all diseases from a naturopathic perspective. You can trace the majority of diseases back to like microbiome and gut inflammation, and inflammation in general, which can come from free radicals, oxidative stress, traumas, and things like that. And so when you start to see this molecular hydrogen being able to upregulate some of our own antioxidant systems, like our catalase, glutathione, our superoxidase, this is able to combat some of those inflammatory conditions that I would commonly see with my patients. And I was like, wow, like this, will make up for on a daily basis, you waking up being inflamed because of your condition and having to take a whole bunch of anti-inflammatories. What else are you doing to start the day? Are you starting day eating the wrong foods and drinking the wrong water? Well, if we get your diet on track, what are we going to do about your water? So then I was like, okay, we need to make sure that your water, since 70% of you is made up of water, is the best possible water as it can be, because you are really what you're drinking, because all of your organs and systems are living in this extracellular matrix, this fluid. And how well or how much stress our body is under in terms of like buffering acidity, then if you can make sure you're taking the stress off our body by providing a substance that's assisting in that process, the body doesn't have to do all of it on its own. And that allows the body to focus on maintaining health and dealing with other issues rather than trying to compensate and deal with so many things at once. The first thing you can do is you're at the environment of your body. You give it really good quality water. So I think that's really the central component to like most people's health. And the amazing thing is there's like a lot of research on how well molecular hydrogen is now helping the gut microbiome and reducing inflammation. So you've got like creating a really good environment for the body. You're not adding in additional stress. You're helping the gut, you're helping inflammation, and they're the 3 cornerstones of everyone's health. So I think it's really a no-brainer for everyone to, use this water from a health perspective.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And we obviously believe that every home should have one of these. And yeah, that's what we're all here to share, to help people to understand the absolute power of this water for optimal health and well-being. So I love that description. Thank you, Nathan. And just if you could make a side note, Nathan, somebody asked about if you could share that article of the publication that you talked about later, please. That would be great. Now, this is a big question, and if you're listening in, you might have some questions that you want to add to this question. And I know that Nathan spends a lot of time speaking to people about the Kangan about pre-filtration and about optimizing the quality of their water as such. But and we have people in the community who have sent us, videos that people have made about Kangan water, usually not in a positive way. And so Nathan, what are some of the most, I guess, common misconceptions about the water? And they might even come from distributors maybe sharing things that they've heard that are not perhaps accurate. But probably more importantly, what are the common misconceptions that other people are saying to try and perhaps discredit our beautiful product?
Well, the biggest argument recently that I've put to bed numerous times was it's alkaline water. And then they would go find some person talking about alkaline water and how bad it was, or reference studies that talk about the potential of how bad alkaline water is. And it's like, well, that's irrelevant. When you push the button 8 or 8.5 or 9.5 on the machine, think of them as power level 1, 2, 3. The only reason why that they're producing, why it's got that pH written on it, is on average, depending on the source water and the minerals in that water, that's the average pH it will end up at once you push that button. All that button does is increase how much electricity and electrons are running through the electrolysis process to separate the water. And the more electricity going through, the more electrons being donated to the water, the more molecular hydrogen is produced. And as I mentioned before, the byproduct of that is the hydroxide molecule, OH negative. And that is what's causing the pH when you're testing it to show high. But not all alkaline waters or even acid products are made equal. There's something really important called buffering capacity. It has to do with the alkalinity of the substance. So alkaline water and alkalinity are two separate things. You can have alkaline water with a low alkalinity and alkaline water with a high alkalinity. To give you an example, one of the publications spells it out perfectly. And they were mentioning that the 9.5 water produced through electrolysis is no more alkaline than the tap water that originated from. So let that sink in. The 9.5 water that the machine produces is no more alkaline than the tap water source, 7 usually, that it started off at. So how is that possible? It's because it has a low buffering capacity. You can take something like bicarb soda, teaspoon in a liter of water, and that would really increase the pH of your stomach acid. Let's say it's at 2, it would bump it up to 8 very quickly. You would take 1,800 liters of 9.5 to do the same thing. So unless you're drinking 1,800 liters of water, it's not going to affect the stomach acid. It's not going to affect the pH of the body in a negative way because it's a very weak buffer. Another analogy, and I did this demonstration one time, I got 2 glasses of water. Both had just regular tap water in there. I put the same equal amount of hydrochloric acid, which is pool acid, same acid our stomach is based on. And at a pH of 2, I had the pH meter in both. And then I added the 9.5 water to it and went from like 2 to 2.7, barely made a dent in it. I put even less of the bicarb water in the glass and it jumped up to like 8 instantly. So it shows you that, again, it's very weak as a alkaline water. So it really cannot be associated. It's just a byproduct. And the alkaline water is reduced very quickly, bringing the pH back down to neutral the moment there's any kind of acid present. So yeah, that's that argument done. Like there's no credible proof that electrolyzed reduced water has any negative impacts on pH whatsoever. And the only time someone's going to get any sort of interaction or Hertzheimer reaction from drinking the 9.5 is actually due to the detoxification effects or some other potential effect from the molecular hydrogen. Because again, the alkalinity is not strong enough to have any effects whatsoever. So are you having some reaction from all of a sudden molecular hydrogen come in, upregulating our NRF2 pathway, which is like it's responsible for a whole bunch of genes in the body. Think of like, you could take one supplement and little light pops up on a Christmas tree. You take something like the 9.5 water with molecular hydrogen, and every single light turns on within the Christmas tree. These are all of our genes switching on, upregulating, downregulating. And depending on the individual person, they might have some sort of methylation issue within that process or something going on that they feel some sort of reaction from. And it might truly be something that they need sorted out. It's like a warning saying, hey, something's not quite right, go get it checked out. Or it could be a Hertzheimer reaction where things will get a little bit worse before they get better, kind of like when you do weight loss and you do a detox. All that says to me is start lower, go slower, and work your way up. I would never ever just drink the 7 water from the Kangan. It means it's just passing through the filter and doing nothing else. I would just start on the lowest, what is it, 8.5 first, do that for a week and make your way up if you feel you're a bit sensitive and have some sort of reaction. So that's the main thing. And there's been a whole bunch of other ridiculous claims like the water gets electrocuted and that's producing this hydrogen gas that can be a bomb and all that sort of stuff. It's just every single one of those things I can refute, like proving with studies or using some sort of chemistry reference to show it's just impossible. The hydrogen gas thing makes me laugh. It's not till you get a concentration of 4.3% that hydrogen gas becomes flammable or explosive. And even at 1.6 ppm, if you convert that to a percentage, it's like 0.00016. So it's like 26 million times smaller than the potential for it to ever be a problem with becoming like an explosive gas. So usually people just throw out terms out there that might, sound credible because they've got just enough knowledge that they've been reading about that it makes it sound scientific, but not really enough to fully understand it, and they've just misinterpreted or on purpose, like misleading people.
Yeah, somebody just said I need a nate in my pocket. I've got one, so I'm lucky. One of the things that while you were saying that, popped into my mind, and I know a lot of people, this has come up recently because of a new product on the market, a little hydrogen making machine. So people are out there, discrediting the Kangan machine and the amount of hydrogen, molecular hydrogen that we make, because this new U-Butte little hydrogen machine can do as much or do better, and it's much less of a cost, etc. So who on the call has, spoken to somebody or heard something about this new Butte little, I don't even know what they're called, but we actually did test not that exact new one, but a similar one. And the guy actually brought it around and he was super excited to show it to Nathan. And Nathan, you can share what happened when you tested it.
Yeah, like they use a PEM membrane, which is just like a different way of providing molecular hydrogen. First of all, most people that get that just put tap water in it and they think, cool, I'm drinking molecular hydrogen. Yeah, you're drinking contaminated molecular hydrogen, and potentially a lot of that molecular hydrogen is wasting its power, reducing all the contaminants in the water, and then they're drinking contaminated, molecular hydrogen water. But the lifespan really that I've seen from the models that I've currently tested is just not there. I don't know how long, this friend of ours had his little travel bottle for. But when testing it, it just had I couldn't even detect a molecular hydrogen. So it may have made it when he first brought it, but I don't know how many liters that he ran through that thing. But by the time I got to test it, nothing was even showing up. So, they might be good for travel, but you just can't compare it. It's like comparing like a, small Mini to a, big truck. It's just like complete different purposes. The therapeutic benefit of being able to first filter the water and then produce that 1.6 ppm of molecular hydrogen forever in a day. Like my brother and stepfather went away to the Kimberleys, now are carrying like 10, 20 liters each of water, because when you get out there and quite remote, it's hard to get water. And so I was filling up the bottles with like these big 20-liter jerry cans of water. And out of curiosity, I was just like intermittently testing it in between, filling up these bottles non-stop. And even after like the 10th 20-liter bottle, it was still producing as much as what it was at the start. And unfortunately, a lot of these machines on the market, they will test the first liter and say, yeah, we make this much. But then after that, it significantly drops off, and you have to wait many hours before they can even start to regenerate, making more molecular hydrogen again. And of course, they're not going to make the hypochlorous acid, or they're not going to make the highly alkalized electrolytes reduced water to help remove pesticides. And one person can use it for one time, and how long is that going to last for? You've got this machine like so well built that you can just use it ongoing. Everyone in the family can use it. So it's just a complete different comparison. It's not even really a comparison. But unfortunately, even beyond all that, even if they made a really good product that lasted and had some sort of pre-filter in it and did all these magical things, for me, like integrity is everything. Like if you're a company based on tearing down another company and using misleading information and allowing the people that are selling your product to tear another company down, what sort of company is that? Like, do you see Ferrari or Lamborghini ever do comparisons against Kia and Hyundai? No, the Ferrari, the Lamborghini. Same with the Magic. They're a Magic. Everyone compares to us. We don't need to do comparisons. And you know, we don't need to tear anyone else down. So it's just really sad. I feel sorry for them that when someone has to tear someone else down to promote their product.
Absolutely. That was a really good comparison about the cars. The other thing too, Nathan, and I'm sure you were going to bring this up, but is pre-filtration. So once again, when we first joined Anagic and bought the Kangan, we didn't understand about pre-filtration. So I don't know who here has, you know, pre-filters or uses some sort of pre-filtration with your machine, but we have, once again, with Nathan's research, learned the importance of pre-filtration. So do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so it ties in before when I was mentioning like really optimizing the machine to get the most out of it. So what I've found is, one, it is not a filter. Its primary design is to make that molecular hydrogen, hypochlorous acid, and the highly electrolyzed reduced water for removing pesticides. That's its three strengths. They, as a company, cannot make a filter that filters the world's water source. You need to look at exactly what is wrong with your water and fix it. Unfortunately, in Australia, we are heavy fluoridated. A lot of the parts in the world are not. So why would Enagic make a filter to remove fluoride when most of the world doesn't use it? And I got sick of having to like buy a fluoride pre-filter every 2,000 liters to match the Kangan 6,000 liters. So like I do with anything, I go above and beyond, and I just started like researching the different ingredients, and I realized they were using aluminum oxide, and a lot of my patients, you know, weren't really comfortable with that. And so I ended up just formulating something myself and finding some amazing proprietary ingredients that were able to remove fluoride for like 6,000 liters. But of course, I just didn't take their word for it. I went and tested it through ALS in Brisbane and made sure it could do it. And it was like 0.01 ppm of fluoride at a rate of like 1 liter per minute. So I really wanted to make sure that the pre-filtration is matching the beauty of the Kangen. And so the other thing I learned about filtration is the carbon of choice for me is catalytic carbon. I don't know if people have had issues with like with smell. Some of the water sources, like the water smells a bit funny, especially when you turn the water down real slow. A lot of that can be hydrogen sulfide. And so catalytic carbon is really the choice of removing hydrogen sulfide. Most of the carbons don't do it. And the beauty of also using that catalytic carbon is that it reduces the chloramine. So most of the time, water filtration in cities are using either chlorine to sanitize, or they use chloramine. And chlorine basically binds onto organic matter and turns into a chloramine. And then chloramine is the stronger version of that, which is really unhealthy. And unfortunately, regular carbon just doesn't remove it. So I wanted to like put something in there, like make a pre-filter that filtered out chloramine. So, you know, to look out for, does your filter remove chloramines? Is it removing hydrogen sulfide? And I wanted to, you know, make a filter last as long as the Kangen 6,000 liters, so I wouldn't have to remember when to replace it. So the other thing to look out for when purchasing, you know, when looking at how can I make the best choice of filtration, is I like using a substance called KDF, which is also, it's like a natural copper and zinc, and it uses redox reactions as well to convert harmful substances to more innate substances that are no longer harmful. It has the benefit of like increasing the life of the carbon generally by 30%, and it gives that microbial protection, so microbes can't grow in the filter itself. And so for me, I'm like, okay, cool, you know, let's get the KDF, and the benefit that I didn't realize was it also helps somewhat by softening the water. I'll explain in a sec why that makes a big difference. But then I was like, okay, what else can be put in this water to help the electrolysis process? And there's certain types of magnesium and other minerals that can be used for that process. And so I sort of combine those filters together to like just transform and have the best of both worlds. Now, in terms of like whatever system you've got, what I would recommend everyone to do is go get some pH, alkalinity, and hardness test strips. You can get them from Amazon, you can get them from Bunnings, and what you do is you test your water source, not from the Kangan, just like straight from your tap water, and look at the alkalinity. The alkalinity is like how many minerals are in that water. And if you were to, really go hardcore, you could go buy an EC meter or a TDS meter and test the mineral content of your water, because the only way that you can actually produce molecular hydrogen is by, one, the water having the ability to run electrical current through it. So if you've got a low mineral content in your water, like you're using reverse osmosis system, which has, a mineralizing cartridge that actually does not cut it, and your natural source water, even without the RO system, is quite low, you're not going to be able to produce the water's not conductive enough to make molecular hydrogen. And to top it off, if you have certain minerals in there that are considered hard minerals, like the carbonates, calcium carbonate, for example, not only does that reduce the conductivity of the water, so the electricity can't pass through it as well, sort of like trying to pass electricity through wood. This is a non-conductive substance. Then it reduces its ability to make molecular hydrogen. And unfortunately, things like the calcium carbonate in hard water can coat the plates of the machine and over time calcify them. And so there's less surface area for the machine to produce that electrical conductivity and do electrolysis. And that's why it's really important to push that beauty water pH 6 button. It reverses the polarity of the electrodes while you've pushed that button. And some of the positive charge minerals attached to the cation and the negatively charged attached to the anion, they kind of break away and force to go in the opposite direction. And then when you click back to 9.5 or whatever water you want to use, they've kind of suspended in the chamber and they get a chance to get flushed out rather than just build up on the plates. But if your source water is hard, you really need to be doing the e-cleaning weekly. And some people might boo-hoo, it's like, oh, you've got this machine, you need to do all this sort of stuff. Any water ionizer needs to do this, not just us, any water ionizer. And so this is the unique ability about ours. There's not many out in the market. I don't think there's many at all that you can actually put citric acid into it and do the clean yourself. That's a huge benefit that we have. That Billy, I don't think there's any others that can do that.
That's a really good point, Nathan, because many people buy their machine and then they don't do much maintenance. So like with anything, you've got to look after your product. And the running of the beauty water, I'll just reiterate that for people who didn't get that. Every morning before you use your machine, you should run the beauty water just for a couple of minutes, if you didn't know that. We've had a lot of questions come through about bore water, except I think one of our questions was going to be what sort of water sources best work with the Kangan, and how can we assist less suitable water sources like your hard water and your bore water. I think you've covered that a little bit, but we've had quite a few come up and say about how we can help with bore water. So maybe just elaborate on that a little bit, because we've got so many questions. So we've probably got about 10 minutes left. Is that right, Jen?
Okay, I'll fly through it.
Yeah.
So bore water is even harder in minerals than normal. So, I've had to work with patients and just also other members in the Kangan community to look at doing water testing on their water and then developing something for them to reduce the hardness. Sometimes you need a specific filter and its job is just to remove the hardness. Similar to fluoride, you just need a specific filter just for fluoride. If you have a filter that does all in one, and they say it also does fluoride, it does not do fluoride very well at all. Maybe for the first few hundred liters, but after that, nothing. And same with bore water. It's quite hard. And so you need to reduce the hardness. And it's often contaminated with bacteria, similar with tank water. Yeah, it doesn't have the fluoride in there, but it has all the smog and the pollution land on your roof and go in your tank. And if the tank is not BPA free, or if it's concrete and it's leaching limestone, that also increases the hardness. So yeah, there's a lot to be gained by dialing in, filtering your water before it gets to your machine to extend the life of your machine and actually get that molecular hydrogen we've been speaking on that does all that magic in terms of all those animal and human studies, all those benefits.
That's awesome, Nathan. And I know that a lot of people I've spoken to don't even know that they should pre-filter, especially for us here in Australia. not as relevant in other countries. And I know Nathan's been working with some individuals in the community who have got really hard water, bore water, and he's had to make up additional filters for them that will help counteract that really, really hard water. So you can always contact Nathan or myself if you've got any specific questions about your water. But let's just scroll through some of these questions they've been coming
There's
in.
also one about, I think, children and if you're going to help children.
Yeah.
The best I could find was like some studies on neuroinflammation. So neuroinflammation will typically lead to some sort of progression in any sort of label someone's given, whether that label's like ADD, anxiety, depression. So neuroinflammation will exacerbate that. There might be some other underlying condition, like some sort of methylation disorder, heavy metal toxicity, that sort of like set that off. But anything you can do to reduce neuroinflammation will help. So if the molecular hydrogen is optimized with the machine properly and it goes in there, it can cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce that inflammation and upregulate our NRF2 system and help our own antioxidants run around the body and reduce inflammation, that's going to help reduce that trigger, that aggravator that progresses that neuroinflammation on. Of course, you're going to probably have to do a bunch of other things to address that, but at least that is the main benefit. And I think that's the link that I found of how it can help with those conditions. I find a lot of patients have issues with inflammation. Again, being I have to do everything 110%. I ended up starting my own supplement company, recovered that because I just wasn't happy with the supplements out there, or people were just taking too much stuff, and inflammation is one big thing that like I see needs to be addressed with everyone. So it's amazing to have a machine that you just pour the water properly and you can do something about that. Again, there are a few tips using preparing the water first properly, then using the citric acid cleaner, e-cleaner regularly, doing the pH 6 beauty water every time you use the machine, or at least once a day, pouring it slowly, so maybe like 1 liter per minute. And then if you really want to know, go buy some like molecular hydrogen meters or the H2 reagent drops to test your water to make sure all the things you've done has been enough. And if you're taking NRF2 tablets, I couldn't find any studies as to like how much that increased the NRF2 within the body and how much the Kangan can. The closest thing I found was it increased our superoxydismutase by 33% and our glutathione peroxidase by like 28% or something like that. Yeah, I can't remember the percentages. Actually, let me just quickly flick through. 39% for superoxydismutase and 25% for glutathione. So there's at least proof that, that's what the water does by increasing our NRF2 that brings those levels up. So at least you've got a baseline after 4 to 8 weeks of drinking our water. And by the way, in terms of how much water to drink in general, I would say you would use 33 ml to 40 ml per body kilo. You got to do a little bit of it dividing by 100 to figure it out. But if you go, 60 kilos times 0.33, that's 19.8. You move the decimal place, 1.98 liters. That is like a base of how to figure out how much water in general you should be drinking, not taking into consideration, are you drinking caffeine, are you exercising, you out in the sun, do you have some sort of medical condition? But that's just like a generic baseline.
Okay, Nathan, there are so many questions. I think it's probably better, rather than me reading them out, that you scroll through and pick a couple that you think might cover a few people's questions, if that makes sense, because there were so many questions coming in. I had put down, Nathan's not on Facebook much, but I am. So we both monitor the Facebook group Free Filters by Naturopath Nate. So if you ask a question in there, both Nathan and I will see that. So for more scientific questions, Nathan will answer, or if I can answer them, I will, because I don't think we're going to get through all of these questions. But if you put those questions, or if you go, is it okay to share where people can ask questions, Jen?
Yeah, I've actually got a list of some of the questions. I've actually just been keeping track of them, Nathan.
Oh, good.
So are you happy for me to just read?
Yeah, Jen, if you want to ask them, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. I think we'll ask the ones I've got and then see how we're going with time, because I know that this incredible community will have you on all night because you're just giving us so much amazing value, but I want to honor your time. So I'll just go through a few that have come through. Can you give any information around your views on Ukon as a supplement, or are you more versed in purely the water?
I love the turmeric, and the great thing about the Yukon is that it's rinsed in the 11.5 to remove like, all those contaminants, and I'm sure they're watering it in the 6 as well. But they've mixed it with some really good like things like vitamin E and other antioxidants to preserve the turmeric, and especially if you're taking that with the 9.5, because turmeric itself is quite difficult to absorb. It's around 15%, and I think that's why Enagic have thrown a few other ingredients in there to help increase the absorption. But yeah, when taking those with the water, that's why it just works so well. Like I make an anti-inflammatory product, and when combined with the Yukon, just dramatic results. Yukon is actually just amazing by itself. It's a really good product.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. And are you able to elaborate a little bit? There's a few comments that came through where people get a little bit, especially not so much for us maybe because we've worked this out being in the community, but new people taking a look at the water or even on a loaner machine worry about the wastewater, which it's not wastewater obviously, but the water that comes out of the secondary hose. Is there ways that you can elaborate on how you reuse it or how you make sure you maximize all the water that the machines produce?
Yeah, so depending on what pH you're choosing, the pH is going to be around 6. And so plants really love a pH between like 5.5 to 7.5. That's the range that the root zone of the plants are able to absorb nutrients. And so it's really good to use in your gardens, plants, growing your own veggies. There's I think a book of like 100 different uses, but I've also used the 6 in terms of like cleaning the glass in my car, in the bathroom. When you click 6 to just click 6 by itself, using that as an astringent. So I love skincare as well. So I geek out on all the serums and glycolic acids and niacinamides. And so it's perfect to use as an astringent to prepare the absorption of the skin before you're putting the serums on. And I find it actually makes all the serums last longer because you're not having to use as much because it sort of glides over the face, putting the serums in when you're using it with the pH 6.
Can I
So
elaborate on that one, Nathan? Because for those ladies and gentlemen who aren't using the beauty water, I love it so much. I have a spray bottle in my bathroom that I pretty much use every couple of days anyway. Like Nathan says, so your skincare in between each application of skincare, not only does it make it go on better, but it helps it to absorb. I use it as like a spritzer, but even if you're doing like a body lotion, if you just either spray your skin first and then put your body lotion on, or put a bit of body lotion on, then spray your beauty water. Oh my gosh, I love it. And on a hot day, guys, spritz yourself with the beauty water. It's my favorite. But when it comes to waste, we do not waste one drop. So everything that comes out of the top hose, we collect the bottom hose. And I'm assuming you all know that they both add up to 14 pH. So that's how you can kind of work out, what's coming out of the bottom hose. So any wastewater, like from the drinking water, we just water all of our plants. So if I've done my indoor plants, I take it outside. I don't waste anything. We use it for cleaning, for sanitizing, for cooking, so many applications. So there's absolutely zero waste. Sorry, Nathan, I just wanted to elaborate on that.
No, that's
yeah, there
fantastic.
should be no waste. I mean, overall, your health should come first. It's great not to waste, but I bet people who complain about the waste, if you look into like how well are you recycling, like what sort of dietary preference do you have? How dedicated are you to, saving waste for the environment? Are you riding a bike to work, or is this just a friendly objection because you can't think of anything else to say?
I love that. That's brilliant. So it's always good to have a nice, friendly comeback. Let's have a real look at your issue here. What are you trying to avoid?
Yes.
Okay, this is a question that's coming from Maneka in Sweden. So she's asking, what is the medical grade certificate about from Japan? Do you know anything about that? She has heard that it's related to the 2.5 water, but then research maybe that shows it's to do with the positive effects in the gut and the stomach. Do you know anything about this?
I believe it was originally given to them because of the effect of, I don't think it's the 2.5, just when they're adding some of the minerals into the machine and the machine is able to produce molecular hydrogen and it has a positive impact on gastrointestinal disease. That's why they were given a medical standard. Well, a lot of people, it's very difficult because it's all in Japanese when you're trying to research this. But I believe that's where it originated from, is the positive effect on gastrointestinal disease using the electrolyzed reduced water. But there was also some information about when they're adding the calcium to the mineral chamber, how in Japan they must have low minerals and they need to add that in or something. And that also was another reason why they were given that standard. But again, that standard may have been more valid back then, before they even knew about the molecular hydrogen. If you can show your machine can make molecular hydrogen, and we've discussed all the therapeutic benefits of that, then I think that's where we lead from. Something we know that there's no dispute about that.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. There's a question about doing salt flushes through your sinuses. Can you use 2.5 for this? And is there any times where you shouldn't be doing a flush? Or there was a conversation about doing a flush or a saline spray against a neti pot if you had an infection in action type thing. Do you have any advice around that for people using the water for sinuses?
A good thing to research is either the term hypochlorous acid nasal irrigation or hydrogen peroxide nasal irrigation. So there's probably more information on hydrogen peroxide nasal irrigation. And if there's a situation where that is safe for your particular condition, whatever your situation is, then hypochlorous acid is safer again. One, because it's not an oxidized, its mechanism of sanitation is not through oxidation like hydrogen peroxide is. It's through chlorination because it has it's like a not charged particle, so it can go through the membrane much more quickly to kill the bacteria. Our body also produces hydrogen peroxide and converts it to the hypochlorous acid. So if you've got some sort of, without really seeing someone's case, if you've got some sort of infection in your sinuses, and it's probably the only time I would bother to do it, and you've read information about hydrogen peroxide being safe, then I don't see why the hypochlorous acid can't be used. I would personally be able to do it myself.
Okay, great. So I've got a couple more questions, maybe three. And then I think, are you happy to close out with those last three questions? Are you happy with that? Amazing. Thanks. We so appreciate you being here, and Lillian, of course. Someone just recently, it's Erica in Bali, actually. She just did a 5-day water fast. Well done, Erica. Congratulations. She didn't have Kangan water for some of it, and she only got a few gallons on day 3. And she went with only 9.5 and experienced really bad heartburn. And she heard that she shouldn't have been drinking the 9.5. Do you have any idea as to why that might be?
It's got nothing to do with the 9.5 because, again, the 9.5 is no more alkaline than pH 7. The second that hit your stomach acid, and by the way, we don't really walk around with stomach acid in our stomach all the time. We produce it as needed. But even the tiniest amount of acid will neutralize the 9.5 back down to a neutral state. So it's unlikely it's because it was 9.5. What may have happened, there's only two things that come to mind is what was linking up to 3 days. Was there something that you were inadvertently consuming that your body then detox?
You're just breaking up a bit,
molecular
Nathan.
hydrogen came in, or you were just unluckily at that point removing those like narcissistic cells, and it by that more than normal. Well, the adverse reactions, the reflux.
And Nathan, I think we lost you there for the last sort of 30 seconds, but it looks like you've come back again on connection. Could you just finish that last sentence where you said what it potentially could have been? Was it where you were saying she
Am
may
I
have
clear
been
again?
detoxing? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, all good. I think, Nathan.
I'll summarize. I'm not sure what I said in the last 30 seconds. So let me know if that helps. But in summary, all I can really think of being put on the spot without being able to think about it in detail is, had you been drinking water that had some particular contaminants in it, and you then went and had the molecular hydrogen, because the 9.5 is sort of irrelevant at that point because it's buffered back down to a neutral state the moment you drink it and it hits any sort of small amount of acid, then you may have, there's something called autophagy, which is what your body's kicked into after like 16 hours. And of course, being in 72 hours, you would have been heavily into autophagy, and you've got a lot of removal of these nascent cells, senescent cells that you're detoxifying. And when you went and drank the 9.5 full of molecular hydrogen, potentially it just amplified the natural detox reaction that you were about to have, or even if you weren't about to have it, it brought it up to the surface. So I would say next time you attempt it, start it from the start, and if you're a little bit concerned, go lower. But I don't believe it's got anything to do with it being 9.5. You could have made the 9.5, neutralized it before you drank it, and probably still had the same effect.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. And I know it's a shame to not see your face, but that has helped the connection. Okay, so I've got one final question for you here, Nathan. Actually, I've got two, because I think one is something a lot of people would ask. A few people have said that they're tossing up between having a full house filtration system or using Kangan. Do you have, hold on, do you have an explanation around the difference as to basically what the reverse osmosis systems don't produce as much as what the electrolyzed hydrogen can do with removing hard chemicals in the water? Is that what you're saying is the benefit of Kangan? Did
So
I
can you
portray that
rephrase
well enough?
that? Did you say they're considering either a whole house water filter system or Kangen? And then where did
Yes.
the RO system come into it?
Yes, it looks like that. Yeah.
You won't get an RO system for the whole house, because the way a RO system works is it fills up a big container of water, because it's extremely slow process and very water wasting. And when you turn your tap on, it actually pumps that water that's been sat in that container up through your tap, because it's not fast enough to produce reverse osmosis on the fly. And so you'd only ever be able to do an RO system that I'm aware of under your sink. And yeah, again, they're complete different things. RO system is designed to create close to sterile water. We're not supposed to drink sterile water. That's not what we're made up for. We actually lose minerals, pulled it out of our system, out of our bones, if we drink RO water long term. There's like a 127-page World Health Organization document on this like years ago of how bad RO water is. And just in case that wasn't the answer, if you're getting a whole house filtration system, generally all that's doing is just the basics, like filtering out sediment, filtering out chlorine, and maybe if it's like a really advanced system, chloramine, but you're not going to remove the fluoride. So you're still going to need a filter for the fluoride. And at the end of the day, yeah, you've got some nice filtered water, but it's dead. There's no redox molecules in there.
So Nathan, what would be the optimal thing, just following on from Jen's question, for somebody who wanted to do their whole house?
There's a guy that I'm working with that makes ice baths, and we're playing around using the whole house water filter systems for his ice baths. I haven't really done it too many for houses, but it would be similar to the under sink one, where you've got KDF in there to stop the microbes growing in the chamber itself, the catalytic carbon to remove the chloramines, because you don't want to shower in those. And then you've got the pre-filter system to remove the dirt and the sediment, because that will coat the carbon and the KDF, stopping it from working. But again, like you're not going to have the magic of the Nespa bringing all those minerals from Japan into the shower. It's just going to be filtered water with this filtered water. And as that gets to the Kangen, it's still going to have fluoride in it. And if you don't have the Kangen, you're just drinking moderately filtered, averaged water.
Would you be better off, because some people perhaps can't have an Anespa in every bathroom and it's not in your sinks where you wash your hands and everything? Can you still pre-filter a whole house system?
Yeah, you can, but you're still going to need a pre-filter system under the sink to remove fluoride for the Kangen.
Yeah.
And I guess a whole house system is probably beneficial if you are on bore water, tank water that is hard because of the concrete tank. That probably might be a beneficial thing to do that. And if you are not able to have an Nespa in every bathroom.
Okay, thank you so much, Nathan. That's just so many beautiful comments. I hope you can check out the Facebook Live after this and just see the comments of gratitude everyone's got for your expertise, your knowledge, how beautifully you answer everything so succinctly and with so much knowledge. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. The one other question that I had, and I think we'll just let Nathan go, let him go and relax after this incredible call, was I'm sure you could talk about it as long as we could ask you questions. So I just want to honor that. But somebody has been asking about cancer patients, and I know we're not able to make claims or health claims and things, but is there a specific water that they can or cannot drink? Does it matter the type of cancer they're dealing with? Do you have anything that you can share around that that would be compliant for us to also be able to share?
Based on the scientific literature, so this is not my opinion, it's been shown to help with tumorigenesis, reduce chemo side effects, and increase angiogenesis, which is increased ability to cut off the growth factors and blood supply to the cancer. Now, you're going to have to go look up those research articles to find out what cancer specifically they were doing it on. But in general, like I had this interesting discussion with someone on one of the Facebook groups about their post on cancer and how, their opinion. And it kept coming back to just show me a few research papers. And within those papers, what exactly in there says you can't use it? And they couldn't find anything, despite me providing ones that showed the benefits of using it for that condition. So, and yeah, the only real way to do it is to have someone with that condition do testing like their circulating tumor cells, use the water and nothing else, redo their circulating tumor cells, which is like the most advanced acute measurement tool of testing for the progression of the cancer. And then they would know themselves whether there's something that they continue with. That's probably the best advice that I can give.
Okay, amazing. That's a perfect way to close that out. Thank you so much. Yvonne, I can see you're desperate for this question as well. Let me just get this last one in. Last one. This is the absolute last question for tonight. Okay, she says, please can you share a little bit about the difference between distilled water? So the water comparison between, do you mean distilled and just Kangen, Yvonne?
Distilled, deionized, that is reverse osmosis water that hasn't been remineralized.
Yeah, so it's like what you were talking about earlier about it being dead versus alive.
Yeah. So what you say, my distilled people won't believe me that Kangen will help. So yeah, distilled water is it's like, real quick explanation. If you drink distilled water, you're not going to pee distilled water out. You're going to still pee out minerals. So if you're drinking gallons and gallons and gallons of distilled water and you're not peeing distilled water out, where's all the minerals coming from? There's something called osmosis. And if you have your cell with a membrane through it, and you've got on one side the extracellular matrix, the fluid with all the minerals in it that's balanced for the sodium potassium pump to work, nutrients to come and go, toxins to come and go. On the other side, you've got distilled water. Half of those minerals from your body will diffuse across the membrane and balance out the distilled water, because your body cannot just have distilled water running through it. It must be balanced. The minerals must be balanced. So you're effectively just peeing out minerals. They got to come from somewhere. So if you don't have a really good gut microbiome, you don't have good buffers of minerals, you've got heavy metals, you've got antagonists, and you're drinking distilled water, you're like leaching it out of your bones. You're leaching it from systems that need those minerals to keep us healthy. It's just a real bad idea to drink distilled water.
Okay, amazing. Lillian, I'm just going to bring you back onto screen. Give me a second. There you are, my love. Thank you both so much. I mean, I've said it 100 times, but you really could be on here all night. And we have to call this a day at some point. Maybe we can convince you to come back again with something more along a theme, or we can chat to you about that behind the scenes. I'm sure everyone would love to see you both again. And we have had so much fun inside this and learned so much. So really, really want to thank you both for being here and giving us your time tonight. And if anybody wants to go ahead and follow Lillian or get in touch with Lillian and Nathan for more information about the pre-filtering and things like that, you are more than welcome to chat to people and get in touch with them as well. So thank you both so much. Is there anything that you wanted to close out with at all, Lillian or Nate, or are you happy for that to be it for tonight alone?
I just really enjoyed it. I was flat out keeping up with all the questions. So maybe if somebody wants to collate all those questions, then I know the Freedom Era are actually looking at getting Nathan in as a trainer. So maybe everybody go, yeah, we want Naturopath Nate.
We'll start a petition.
I'll plug him. He won't plug himself. I'll plug him. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Nathan.
We've already got lots of requests from people asking for us to go through this call and create a PDF and support the community. So I'll probably be tagged onto that task soon, and I'll be in touch for you to double check it before we do anything. So watch this space, everybody, but just give us time to also go through this information as well.
That's classy.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. It's been great.